What's up guys, my name is Haro. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and welcome back if you already follow this channel. And if you don't follow this channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button below and follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is @IamJoeHaro. Once again, it's @IamJoeHaro. Look to the left. Alright guys, so today's video is how I bought my first house at the age of 26 years old, okay? A lot of people can't say that they've done that, so I'm very proud of saying that. You know, I worked very hard to get to where I'm at in my life. I'm currently 28 years old, and I bought my home 2 years ago by myself. So I'm gonna give you guys some insight on how I did that, what you guys can do in order for you to be able to buy your own home, you know, at a younger age versus, you know, waiting years to do that. It's possible, guys. As long as you set your mind to it, you can pretty much do anything. So the way I did it is, well, I moved out at the age of 20 years old, okay, first of all, and I started off doing things step by step. This didn't happen overnight, guys, okay? So I moved out at 20, okay, and I was working 3 jobs at the time, and I was also going to school full time, okay? My first place that I had ever moved into was basically a room connected to a back house, and my room was an add-on made out of metal, kind of like fiberglass. It basically felt like a shed, guys. And so that was the first room I had ever rented out. I was broke back then, and I just wanted to be independent, so I moved out of my mom's house, and I stayed there for about 2 years, basically. So I stayed in a shed for 2 years, okay? It was extremely hot, guys. In the summer, I remember taking naps, and I would be sweating so much because my room was made out of metal, guys. And in the winter, I remember I had blankets, and I even had like a plug-in heater, but I also had to sleep with coats under my blankets because that's how cold it was. The room was made out of metal, and I remember seeing my breath sleeping in that room. So I struggled so much within that 1.5 to 2 years that I stayed in that room, but I was willing to put in the work and tell myself, okay, this is all gonna pay off. I'm working 3 jobs, okay? This is my stepping stone. I'm independent, I refuse to go home, okay? So I stayed there for 1.5 to 2 years. Some other stuff happened. My room had gotten broken into. They were stealing my shoes back then. I collected Jordans. I had worked at Fossil, which is a watch store, and I collected watches. I got 50% off there. They were stealing my watches. I had basically a lot of shit stolen that year. I also found a husky, my first husky that I fell in love with. Her name was Kira. She passed away. So all this fucked up shit had happened to me within this 1.5 to 2 years. And when Kira had passed away, it was basically 2 years into living there. I told myself, okay, if this is not the biggest sign to get out of there, then I don't know what is. So when that happened, I literally moved out 2 weeks after that. I had already landed the job that I'm currently at right now. It's been about almost 8 years, okay? I do software sales for a living, okay? But back then, when I was living in that place, I was doing 2 retail jobs. I was also working for Chase. I was a teller along with going to school full time. And when Kira had passed away, I told myself, okay, I need to move out. I can't be here anymore. There's a reason why this is happening, and it's finally time for me to move on. So I had landed my software sales job, and back then the company was still startup. And so I remember getting that job and me basically finally being able to quit 2 of my retail jobs because I was now making the money of what 2 retail jobs were paying me into 1 full-time job. So I quit 2 of the jobs. I kept 1 retail because I liked the discount. And basically 2 weeks after my dog had passed away, I got my own place. I rented a duplex, okay? And that duplex was a 3-bedroom duplex. So I moved in with my sister. She rented 1 room. And then we moved in with another friend. She also rented another room. So this is a 3-bedroom duplex. I had stayed there for about a year, okay? And I did that for about a year. After that, I was like, okay. During that time, staying at the duplex, I actually got another husky. For me, I find comfort in dogs. And I had moved out of my mom's house obviously for 2 years, and during that time I had a dog, and I had went through a lot during those 2 years, and Kira is what basically kept me sane. You know, she was my comfort. And so when she passed away, I got another husky, and his name is Nico. He's been with me for about 5 years. I actually have 2 huskies now. There's Nico, and then there's Maya. And so when I was staying at the duplex after the room for about a year, I had Nico with me, and we raised him basically inside the duplex. But as he turned 1 year old, I told myself, okay, I can't raise a husky inside. It's time for me to move up. And by that time, I was moving up in my job, and I was making more money. And so then I looked into renting a house. So I moved out of the duplex, and then I rented a 4-bedroom house. And I did that for about 2 years, okay? And it was me, my sister, another friend, and another friend. So we had a 4-bedroom duplex, okay, in Northridge. I did this for about 2 years. 2 of the friends had moved out, then I replaced them with another set of roommates. I found roommates on, and I did postings on Craigslist. There are websites like Roomster, Roomie, roommates.com, and basically you can find college students looking for places or just anybody in the area. And so I would interview candidates basically and make sure that they knew what I wanted as far as in a roommate. And so I live with 2 new people. One was 26, one was 28, and basically I did that for about 3 years. I lived in a house, a 4-bedroom house in Northridge for about 3 years. And then I told myself, okay, the mortgage is $2,900, or the rent's $2,900. I was doing this for 2 years, and I'm like, okay, I'm paying someone else's rent that's $2,900. Why don't I buy my own house? Why am I paying someone else's house? So when I lived in the room, I remember my rent was like $600 in that shed, okay? And then when I moved out and I got the duplex, that duplex was $1,800, okay? And so we split that duplex. Was it 18? No, it was $2,100. And we had split it 3 ways, and it was $700 just for the room, and then we split DirecTV, Wi-Fi, and gas basically, and water and power was included. So then we moved out of the duplex, then we moved into the house for 2 years, and our rent was $2,800 for the first 2 years, and then we renewed it for another 2 years, and had gone up to $3,200, I think. And then we're splitting that 4 ways. And so I think into the 3rd year, I had told myself, why am I doing this? Why am I paying someone else's rent when I could pay my own mortgage? I'm living with roommates. I can do the same thing, but be paying off my own home, and they'd be investing into my own home. So I started looking into that. And so I found out, I had tried once, I think prior to that, to see how much I qualified based on my income back then. When you buy a home, guys, okay, one, you have to have a stable job, okay? When you get a loan through a home loan company, basically, they're gonna look to see if you have a stable income. You need to be at your job at least for 2 years, okay? Next thing is based on the size of your income, whether you're gonna qualify by yourself or if you're gonna need a co-signer. Back then, I remember I was making like 60 grand, and I don't care. I'm willing to tell you guys these numbers. This is back then. When I had looked into buying a house for the first time, when I was making 60 grand, I had been approved by myself for, I think, $300,000 by myself. And I had a credit score of like 680 at the time. You need at least a 600 minimum with a decent job for at least 2 years. Depending on the size of your income, then they'll determine how much you're approved for. But I was making 60 grand and I had like a 680, and I got approved for $300,000 by myself. Well, back then, that could only get me a condo in a more, not so good area in the valley. And I was living in Northridge at the time, renting a house that was like $3,200. And I wanted a home somewhere out here in Northridge or Woodland Hills, Encino, West Hills. So I said, okay, let's wait a little bit. Let's wait till my income goes up a little bit higher. And so I waited. Well, into the 4th year renting that home, I tried again. My income had increased basically. And now I got approved for $600,000, okay, by myself. So, in order to buy a home, you have to have good credit, okay? In order to grow your credit, guys, I recommend opening up a few credit cards, maybe 2 or 3 to start off with. And basically, as you guys are opening up your credit cards, don't ever pass more than half the limit, guys, okay? If you go past half of the limit, that looks bad when it comes to creditors, okay? So what you should be doing to increase your credit is spend a little bit and then pay it off real fast. So if you go and buy a TV on your credit card, pay off that credit card as fast as you can, and then it looks like you're using it basically, and then your credit starts to get developed and it starts to go up. So make sure when you guys do apply for credit cards, you only do 2 to start off with, and start to use them and pay them off real fast, and then your credit will continue to get established. You want to do this for about 2 or 3 years first. That way your credit has some history to it, okay? But before buying a home, and then you have a solid income for 2 years, and depending on how much you make annually, that'll determine how much you get qualified as far as in a loan. So if you make $60,000, okay, I know for a fact if you make $60,000 and you have a credit score of 680, you will get qualified for at least $300,000 by yourself, okay? And that's based off of my experience personally, okay? So I had got approved. I bought my first home at 26 in West Hills, California. The house was $580,000, and I got approved by myself based on my credit score, based on my income. And I also needed, in order for me to get qualified, I got qualified for an FHA loan, which stands for First Time Homeowners Loan, basically. And so in order to get that type of loan, you need 3.5% down minimum. So I needed to make sure that if I bought my house for $580,000, that I had 3.5% of that saved in my bank account. So if you guys are trying to pursue and buy your first home, you should be saving, okay? That is the most important thing, guys. So make sure as you guys are getting paid that you're putting some money into your savings account, because the sooner you do that, the sooner you can buy your first home, okay? So you need to have stable income, 2 years. You need to have a minimum of 600, okay? It can be lower than 600. I believe it can go up to go down to 500, but you're gonna have to put more down, probably 10% down if you have a 500. So if you have at least a 600, the minimum is 3.5% down for an FHA loan, okay? And you need to have 3.5% down based on the size value of what you're buying your home for. In this case, I bought my home 2 years ago, and it was valued at $580,000 at that time. So I had to make sure that I had 3.5% of $580 down when I bought my home, which I did. So I applied, and during that time, I had been looking at a few other houses. Back then. The housing market was crazy, and it still is today. People were buying houses left and right, and it was constant negotiations, and I was being outbid. It was very frustrating. I put offers on a house in Northridge, a house in Woodland Hills, Encino, and I kept getting outbidded. People were going above me, and then I finally saw this place. And I remember telling myself, 580 at that time was really my limit. I couldn't go any higher. The house, I think, was listed at 589. But it had been on the market. It was February when I bought the house. And I had been looking since January of that year. And they had put the house on the market since October. And it hadn't sold since October, and that was a long time. So I remember they had put the house down from 600. It would start off at 600. And then in December, they lowered it to 589. When I looked at it, it was still at 589. So I told my realtor, this was the 5th house I put an offer on. I said, let's offer them 580. I know it's below the 589 that they had been asking for, but if it's meant to be, it'll happen. Well, I put it down for 580, and they accepted it. And 580 was really like my limit, but I told myself, okay, I've been in hard situation. This is just gonna make me work harder, and I know I can get myself, you know, more established, and I'll grow my income more, and I know I can do it. So I applied, and I got accepted, and I went into escrow very fast, and my house closed, my sale. I think it took about 2 weeks. I was in escrow, and the home was mine, guys. I qualified for everything. I had been at my job for 2 years. I had stable income. I had good credit. I had a 680. I had 3.5% of $580,000. And that's how I did it, guys. So it's not impossible. And yes, this is not my dream home, guys. This is my first home. And I do plan on, you know, growing so much more. Believe me, I have so much more that I want to give, and so much more that I want to grow in life, and this is only the stepping stone for my first home. My next home is going to be huge. I mean, I'm so excited for what's next to happen in my life. So that is how I got my first home, guys, okay? It's not impossible. You just need to put in the work, okay? If you're currently not happy at your current job, go to another job, okay? All the jobs that I ever pursued, I did whatever it took to get there, basically. Sometimes I would have 4 or 5 interviews, and when I wanted to work for Chase as a teller, I literally had 5 interviews, and I kept going. When I wanted to work for Urban Outfitters, I remember I applied to 3 Urban Outfitters, and all of them kept telling me, no, I wasn't the look of what they needed at that time. But I eventually landed a spot. So you guys can definitely do it. It's not impossible. And just to recap some of the tips, guys, you gotta have at least a 600 credit score to buy a house, okay? You have to have solid income for 2 years, okay? That's what a loan requires. You need to have 3.5% down for a FHA loan of what your home is gonna be worth. So if you're buying a house that's worth $580,000, you need 3.5%, which is about, I think, 21 grand almost, okay? Or if you're gonna buy a condo to start off with, guys, you might need, you know, less down. It just really depends on what area you're trying to live in and what you really want for yourself. And if you don't, let's say you want to buy a home even sooner and you don't make that much money, ask your mother, ask your father, ask your grandparents. If they have solid income, you can have someone co-sign for you. And then when you apply for your loan, both your incomes combined can get you qualified for that home. So let's say when I applied for my loan and the house was worth $580,000, and I didn't qualify by myself because I didn't make that much annually. Well, if my mom or my sister happens to make half of the income that I need in order to qualify for that much big of a loan, basically, they can co-sign on my lease. Or not on my lease, I'm sorry. They can co-sign on my loan. And as long as they have good credit, they've been at their job for 2 years, and they're willing to co-sign, put their name on the house, and that's possible, they can do it with you. So it definitely is possible, guys. These were my tips on how I bought my first home. If you guys have any questions, need some advice, leave me a comment below. Let me know what you guys think about this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks.